Yeah, excellent. So that's what I was hoping to sort of lead into now is perhaps how some of the ideas in your book can give us insights about effective performance review meetings or sessions, and you know, what are the characteristics of effective performance review meetings?
So, well, I thought to myself, performance management actually is part of the feedback systems in an organisation.
Yep.
So wherever we work, there are feedback systems that come from customers into us, from suppliers into us, irrespective of the organisation we're working in, whether it's a product or service-based organisation.
Yep.
So feedback is what we get that allows us to adjust our actions, behaviours, processes, plans, so they're aligned to customer requirements.
Yep.
So it's, for it to be at its best, it needs to be dynamic and fluid. So within that, individual performance reviews, traditionally they're once a year.
Yep.
They're moments where you typically talk to your superior, your boss, who may or may not have a formal process, may or may not have a formal evaluation process that I fill in as the employer, you fill in as the boss.
Right.
But if it is formal, then you fill out your perspectives of how I've gone.
Yep.
I fill out my perspectives how I've gone. And so that provides feedback for both of us when we sit down. We might sit down for an hour. Yep. Hopefully you've done your work, I've done my work. We come to have a productive conversation about how I can improve my performance.
Yep.
And I would argue that's the most important hour of my life in that year.
Okay.
Because if I get good feedback from a superior who's my boss, who I know well, I get an idea of whether I'm going forward, whether I've got a promotion coming up,
right,
or whether I've got a demotion and not a development step.
Right.
But I should also, if that performance review goes well, have a strong sense of what things I need to work on in my development. So I may have learnt a range of technical skills in my course,
right,
but I now need to apply those in a day-to-day basis. I need to work with a group of people. I need to collaborate with some.
Yep.
I need to be self-driven, have initiative. So all those things hopefully will be part of a productive performance review. Now,
Yep. Yep.
it's fair to say that not every organisation has performance reviews. Sometimes they happen when we've got a chance.
Yep.
Sometimes they don't happen. Normally an organisation gets to, I don't know, maybe over 50 people. It then can become more formalised and structured. You might have a HR department, you might have someone helping the managers do performance reviews.
Right.
Performance reviews often are difficult for management because they have to say hard things.
Right.
They'll often avoid saying those directly.
Yep.
So you have to do a lot of education within the company to conduct a healthy performance review that's productive for me and for you.
Yep.
So that gives you a sense in terms of characteristics. As I said, performance review is part of the feedback. I think as part of the characteristics, we need every performance review to be linked to the strategic objectives of the organisation. Yep. And then the operating plan that's valid for that 12 months. So I should be able to link my performance with the success of my area or department.
Yep.
And I should be able to see the link between my area and the organisational performance.
Sure.
So in good organisations, they have a direct alignment process from the top,
sure,
from the board, down to the senior management team, down to departmental areas, and then down the departments.
Individual employees. Yeah.
And so a good performance review process is that I can see my input and how it impacts on the success of the organisation.
Excellent.
Which should make the foundation stones that I'm standing on strong, because I know what I've done to make my area successful and what my area has done to make the organisation successful. A performance review should be fair and it should be objective.
Okay.
So that means that it shouldn't be personality based.
Okay.
There should be some structure to it, in that me as the person being reviewed should understand what you, my boss, is looking for. So that's where that idea of a formal evaluation process comes in.
Yep.
A good performance review shouldn't have any surprises about the past. which means that, let's say I've made an error, I would expect to get feedback about that error straight away.
Right.
Because then I could fix up or develop or uncover that blind spot that I had, see the consequences of my actions the next day. So by the time I get to a performance review, I shouldn't be learning of things that I did over that 12 months. I should have already known about them.
Yep.
So therefore, that makes the performance review not of one of surprise,
Right.
but one of development.
Yes. Okay.
So if it's not about, if I've had no feedback over the past year, then it can be a very nerve-wracking experience, the
Right.
performance review, especially if you know that there's no structure and you don't get on with your boss.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So in a more developed organisation, personality shouldn't be part of it, but we're human beings, so it tends to be. So the other aspect that I briefly mentioned is the other characteristic is that performance reviews should be about development and the future. So what do I need to do next year to build my competency, knowledge, skills that allow me to take the next step in my development path and my career.
Right.
And obviously that depends on what I'm interested in, and you as my boss I hope, asks me, you might do that in the recruitment process, but also
Sure.
ongoing. Every performance review should check in with where I think I'm going. You need to tell me whether where I'm going is valid and appropriate.
Yep.
And if it's not, what things I need to work on to enable me to get back on that track that
Okay.
I'm pursuing.